Hello and welcome to another episode of the New World Comics Podcast. I'm Buck Berlin, owner-operator of this fine establishment. Or I guess if you're listening, owner of the thing you're listening to, I guess. I don't know. It gets
That's
weird.
complicated.
It's complicated. Joining with me is Stephanie Cerny.
Hey!
Yay!
Yay!
And running the show is Drew Stone with
Yay!
Communicore Systems Operations. What is it, Drew?
Media
Systems.
Systems.
Yeah. I'm good at this, right?
Yeah, anything you say.
Yeah, so this is our 52nd episode, we think. If not, we're calling it that anyway. So welcome to a full year of our podcasts. So for our 1-year anniversary, we tried to get Jerry Bennett, and we didn't.
He said no. He's too busy.
Yeah, he's too busy. So the next choice was George Carle. Yay!
And you know, that to many people might sound like something that wasn't something you should say, but if I'm filling in for Jerry Bennett, that means I have arrived.
Yes, you're here.
So yes, I've not only arrived, but I've arrived metaphorically in life. So
Yes.
I'm pretty much done. So after this podcast, I guess I'm going to retire from everything.
Ruh-roh.
Well,
But we need you.
oh well, okay. I'll come out of retirement when
Yeah.
that's over. But when I get over the euphoria of being mentioned in the same paragraph as TJB.
I was going to say the back room's just going to overflow like a cancerous tumor.
Okay, well,
It's,
it'll be. I will work during my retirement.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We got that figured out. And then there's the superhero schools we need you in.
Yes, well, that'll also be a working. Well, it's kind of more of a labor of love, so that's really kind of like retirement anyway.
Yeah. I guess for those who haven't listened to all 52 episodes, 52 official count anyway. Anyway, all the episodes. Why don't you tell everyone who you are and what you do, and then we can get into things.
Well, I started out a long time ago as a customer, a beloved customer.
Yes.
Yes, and there was, I don't know, maybe around 2007, whatever,
That sounds
around
safe.
there,
Yeah.
And just kind of started helping out, and just the helping kept going, and then the helping eventually included working with Superhero School. I mean, that's a big jump in time.
Yeah, I remember what it was that got you started into being part of the crew. We were doing the Great Sword of the Back Room,
Which one?
the very first one.
There's only one back room. Well, actually, no.
Well,
Which
It's kinda two,
great
really.
sword?
So it
yeah.
was the very first Great Sword in which we were very successful. We had successfully sorted the back room, and then I bought more comics,
Yes.
and then I bought more comics, and then I bought
The never-ending buying of
more
comics.
well, but there's also the never-ending selling of comics. You might even call this a never-ending story.
You might, but I wouldn't. No, but actually, though, and it was... No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
It was a 2-month project that has not ended.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
well, it ended, and then I very, very soon after that,
It never ends.
I bought more stuff, and I was like, "Hey, George, would you mind helping out?" Yeah.
And it was really, it's like, kind of like high-stakes Jenga.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I mean, really high-stakes Jenga.
Because we hear things fall back there and we're like, oh man, we need to go check on George.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very rarely is it anything really important. It's usually some sort of costume box that,
Or empty boxes.
it just precariously placed by someone that's not us,
Right.
and it's that fell.
People
Okay.
who don't understand geometry.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, you don't, an inverted pyramid's not
Well,
going
there are a lot of people who work here who have not had geometry yet,
Oh, okay.
so they do not understand
Aw.
the importance of it when you're playing pool and when you work at a comic book store.
And, you're playing deadly games like high-stakes Jenga.
Yes.
But yeah, so we've covered the hacking away at the back room, but the superhero school is something that you are one of the star players in it. And you don't really fancy yourself an actor. You don't really fancy yourself a cosplayer. But it's something that you fit into seamlessly, and you thrive.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and it's interesting to think back to the journey of getting there. And again, it was first was helping out. I think it was Vision. You were doing some Avengers
Yes.
Day or something. You want to be Vision, and boy, I really liked the term you came up with that costume, Nightmare Fuel.
Yes.
It was
For those watching, I'm sure I have a picture here.
But don't look. I mean, unless you want to be scared.
Yeah, for those listening, you know what? Hey, you saved yourselves.
Yes.
Which, I mean, at the time, most of the costumes we made were cardboard and duct tape. So, like, this was, almost a revolutionary thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it was an early Zentai, but then there was an inner mask. I was several layers away from reality.
Yeah.
And it was almost like going to sleep up there for a little bit because you'd feel so detached from everything. But it was I was happy to help out.
Yeah.
But it was really when you and I were talking about this, reminiscing a little bit, I think I asked you, when did it really get the hooks in? And you said it was Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
And that did resonate with me. I love playing Blue Beetle.
Yeah, because, I feel like we were short on people, and you said, well, if ever you need help with this thing, I was like, I need a vision for the Avengers because the cast was short. And then I feel like 2 or 3 superhero schools later, Justice League was up, and I thought, well, let's see what you can do with Blue Beetle because he's always been one of my favorite characters, and I know he's one of yours.
And he kind of became one out of that. I mean, it's always kind of a completist when you like teams and everything like that. So if anybody who's on a team is there, it's like, the more the merrier. And, Blue Beetle has certainly got in the JLA DNA. And so when you see him show up, that's great. And, of course, with Booster Gold. But this one really got me because he's a fun character to be. It wasn't really much of a stretch. It kind of, it's kind of the way I like to just kind of joke around anyway.
I mean, that does kind of lend to how I cast most of the superhero schools too, is personality fitting to a character or thinking that someone could end up at that whatever that character personality needs to be.
And it is your superpower, at least among your superpowers. It is the casting is great. Some of the times I had the most fun were the characters that I never expected to be, was never on my bucket list. Once you get into it, it's like, okay, I want to be that character, this character, or whatever. But the real fun ones are sometimes just what you're just kind of thrown into it. And
like who?
Well, there was one time that it had to be Magneto.
Yeah.
And although that isn't the most fun that I had as a throw-in character, the fun of that was, oh no, what do I do? How do I be Magneto? And that's where the challenges of acting in superhero school come in. It's like, so what did I... And the thing that turned it for me was when I talked, I looked over everybody. Mm-hmm. So I looked over, then that kind of haughtiness got in there. And then, Flowers was there as Professor X. We had a good banter back and forth.
Yeah.
And there was a moment even, and maybe this is just, I'm pushing this character too much, but when it was Toad, Jeff came out, and I was getting on the kids for making fun of him, and I almost felt like I was winning the argument of people persecuting mutants. And I was like, I gotta throttle back a little bit, and at the end I said, well, maybe there's hope for everybody, and I didn't want to push that too hard, but that became fun, that challenge.
Yeah, well, I find as far as acting in the superhero schools go, too much is almost never a thing.
Yeah.
Jeff has come close once or twice, typically with like when he was Guy Gardner one of the first couple times, and Solo, he was.
Yeah, but that.
Yeah, but to me, like that was one of those special times.
Yes,
yeah, but
that's when too much was exactly what you needed.
Yeah,
and I think some of what Jeff does, my favorite. I'll still go back to his Executioner. Is one of the things I like because when you take his energy and just kind of rein it in a little bit, it's almost like I'm not saying style wise, but I think of like. What are Jim Carrey's best movies, at least for a lot of people, is when he's
governed.
In,
yeah,
when he's reined in. So you rein in, Jeff's energy, and he's he's got the all the different gags to say and everything.
Yeah.
He comes up with them really fast, and I forget which one it was, but I was talking to him. I said, "You did a great job in whatever," and I think when we were talking, it was kind of like the feel was he'd only said 1/3 of the things he could think of.
Yeah.
So there's that much, it's kind of like a thoroughbred. You got to rein him back in, and he runs in a great lane at that point.
Yeah. So I mean, there are times when it's the unleash Jeff on this. Let's see the wild, and then there are times it's the let's see if you can bring it back. it's I know it's entertainment for the kids, whatever, but there's artistry that happens.
Yeah, and my favorite Jeff story though is and this is more maybe cast oriented as opposed to the audience oriented, was the first Comic-Con where we were doing Avengers. I was Coulson, and it was something like when we were sitting down to talk, Coulson, and he was going to be D-Man, and he said, "Oh, Coulson's going to be there." That's all he had to say. We coordinated nothing, and I just knew he's going to be coming at me. And of course, Coulson straight lane, and so I said, "I got to prepare for this a little bit."
Because D-Man is the biggest Cap fan,
and so is Coulson. Yeah, so that was the energy to play off of, and I remember I got to prepare a couple of things.
Yeah,
because memorizing stuff doesn't work for me. It's just a couple of things so you can get a jump on or a point.
Right.
And I remember something about I have to say something like he flunked his psych exam. How did he get an Avengers or something like that?
Yeah.
And it was just a wild ride, and it worked well.
Yeah, I mean, like the few times that I've done it, that's memorizing lines, it doesn't work for me. But having a rough outline or a kind of sort of idea of what I'm gonna do. Like when I was Hercules, it was what if someone asks about my mace?
Yes.
Have something ready for that. Well, if someone asks about the headband thing that he wears, have an answer for that. Why is Hercules not wearing pants? Why is Hercules wearing sandals? That have
you
answers
never
for all
know
these.
what the kids are going to come at you with.
Right.
Is one thing we've definitely learned.
Yes.
Right. And the superhero school group I found is really kind of a smart Alex club, and the quicker witted you are, like the better you tend to do, and you're one of the quickest wits that we've come across.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. What helps is everybody else, when there's those moments where you see somebody like, oh, they're really on their game, and I know I've said a couple of these stories before, but the immediate thought, it was I think it was Kelsey, I think maybe doing Gypsy Moth or something. I remember just being there. It was a day where I said, we were doing something that I'd done before. I said, yeah, I've done this before, no problem. And when she was like, oh man, I better do my homework. So that's the moment for me. If I ever feel like I'm tempted to phone it in, which I think that temptation's gone a long time ago. I was like, no, homework.
Yeah.
Or Cassidy's Shade, where I still remember the last thing before that was we were queued up. I was Phantom Stranger. We're going over all the stuff he can't say.
Yeah.
Well, not we. I was listening to him kind of go through it.
Uh-huh.
And I just turned around and say, you basically you got nothing or whatever, or not something that bad sounding, but it was just kind of like a. And I left him there. He had nothing, and when he came out, he took nothing and turned it into like a real head trip.
Yeah, because he was playing Shade the Changing Man.
Yeah.
Who goes crazy every time he uses his invest that warps reality around him, and yeah. So he was like, oh, so that'd probably mess with your mind. What else messes with your mind? Oh, psychedelic drugs. Why don't we play on that trope and turn the vest into a thing, which they kind of did in the comics. So
Yet he kept it all perfectly
clean and appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was this look at him walk that tightrope. Oh, look at him. He's doing flips on that.
Yeah, he's dancing on the tightrope.
Yeah.
Take the tightrope away. He's still there. He's just on it.
Yeah.
So that's always and the if I had to walk away with an impression is like how he did it. The kind of the same sensation you get when you're diving into a pool. You just got to jump, and that'll be my mental go-to point. And I'll tell anybody who's trying to get into it, you just got to be the character. You just got to jump in.
Yeah.
You've got to leave the inhibitions behind and just be the character, and that's what's better. That also what serves better than the memorizing of things.
Yeah. The only time that doesn't work is when you're in a terribly uncomfortable costume. Like when I was Swamp Thing, like it was this thing is physically hurting me. I need to get through this as quickly as I can. Oh no, I just flubbed my lines. Whatever. It's Swamp Thing.
Well, you know what? And I guess it could be the different kinds of discomfort too, because that would kind of throw you off. Excessive heat would really mess you up.
Well, because the Swamp Thing suit is excessive heat, lack of vision because the lenses fog up, which I know you've.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Just keep going with it.
Yeah. Then there's the balancing because I put myself up on yoga blocks to be taller. Swamp Thing's very tall, and I am not very tall.
That was total Swamp Thing.
I'm not Swamp Thing height. So
Well, and then the most recent time your costume was falling
yeah,
apart.
the costume kept falling apart on me, and it was like I had to move certain ways, and I had to stand certain ways, and things just weren't working out.
Yeah, well, there's too much to concentrate on just to not die.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, it's gonna sound like gush on everybody kind of time. But you gave when you said when you're uncomfortable, that doesn't always work against you. And again, I'm gonna brag on Cassidy again when we were doing the what was it, an Ant-Man day where he was Ultron.
Oh yeah,
That was an we talked later, and he channeled the discomfort into the angry Ultron, and we had a good back and forth on that one.
Oh man, I forgot about how cool Ant-Man Day was.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was just ridiculously cool.
And playing Hank Pym, or Dr. Pym when he was just going by that name with West Coast Avengers, it's a nice contrast. Like I would put him in the kind of similar category to doing Jay Garrick in Flash. That the good, happy guy, he's in his place, everything's going great. The one brief time in Hank Pym's life that everything was fine.
Yeah.
And just being that upbeat kind of guy, it's a good switch up.
So whenever I throw you into these weird roles, I know that you'll go to the back issues, do your homework. Has ever there been something you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna pick up on this, and you've tried to read something, you're like, this is terrible, or man, this is great. I didn't realize how awesome this series was.
I would say the great would go down to the single issue because I'd never heard of Hydra Bob when you're doing Deadpool. So you could be Hydra Bob. Who's that? You explained it to me, and the issue where he had invented the popcorn,
the corn
Zuka,
yeah.
Corn Zuka, and I just kind of love the guy. I mean, he's a goofy character. He's just messing up, and really he's just there to kind of be, I guess, an Abbott to Deadpool's Costello, if that makes sense, or I don't know.
Yeah.
The comedians can correct me on the best analogy.
With them in the comics, it's kind of this back and forth because sometimes he'll go to one extreme, and then Deadpool will all of a sudden be the voice of reason to bring him back down, and then it's like a baton in a race. They're just kind of handing it off.
The one, and if there was one that I wouldn't say hated, but terrified me a little bit, was the second time up as Captain Boomerang. Because the first time, I could do an Australian accent, and I did not. I really did not. The second time, and of course, on top of the first time, it was the old school costume where you're wearing the flight attendant hat and everything. It was just silly, and I didn't feel like it went very well. So it's okay if you're silly and you're doing well.
Yeah.
Forbish man. But when it's like, and you don't feel comfortable with the accent, but the second time, I didn't expect the better costume, with the overcoat and everything. So then it looked cool. But I had listened for the prior week, YouTube, it's got everything. And including, how to do an Australian accent. You've got 4 videos to help you. But it became also one of those discovery moments, the tricks, like the same trick I said when you're Magneto, look over everybody. Mm-hmm. The trick for filling in the blanks of the soft parts of the Australian accent was make up words. I started making up words for boomerangs and the different kind of, like, you call them rangers. Now, I don't think they really call them that. I've never heard that. But if you call something a kind of correct sounding name but a little bit out there, it sounds very Australian. You put an accent on top of it that's trying to get to Australian, you get there.
Yeah.
But that was also a good being the character day, because I remember they let us in there and I was just, all right, Captain Boomerang's a jerk. I'm just there. And one of the kids said, pointed, he obviously doesn't want to be here. And I was like, yes. Yes. So, yes.
Yeah.
But then the spontaneity comes out of some of those. I had not, like, one of the things I hadn't planned, but I guess listening to enough Crocodile Hunter when Blaine started mouthing off as Killer Croc, I said, quiet, freshie. It just came out of nowhere. So you're just diving into it. Dive in.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. Become part of superhero school. It'll change your life.
So, in doing the research, did you ever come across any of the comics that you were like, all right, I'm following this character from now on?
Let's see. I know a lot of it has to do more with the action figure, but Hydra Bob was when I started a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit of that. So many. Let's see. So many of the ones though you've been kind enough to do things. It was kind of the reverse. Like you did Man Bat because you knew it was a chase character since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the reverse of that. I know the answer is yes, but I cannot. It'll come to me later on. I'll just jump in.
How's this? Let's go over some of your favorite characters that you've been, and I'll have you recommend some of your favorite stories from the comics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, Man Bat, what are if people don't really know the whole thing about Man Bat and they don't want to get on YouTube and watch someone else blather on about Man Bat, you as a fan, what are some Man Bat stories to look for?
I would say anything from the 70s, because when his origin, because that's really sets him up and everything and makes him part of the Batman universe. When I was just refreshing myself, quick Wikipedia stop we did last time. I was even embarrassed to tell you that as much as he's a chase character of mine, I do focus on the older stories and remembering them, because as I see the newer and newer stuff, he's become kind of like generic
werewolf.
Yeah, werewolf with wings. It's like, not so great. And then when they did, which was one of the DC recent reboots that I would kind of nerd rage about.
I think it was the New 52 when they completely redid.
Yeah, and the thing I didn't like about that is they changed an essential part of his story. They all characters have their things. I mean, if they're well developed enough. And one of the things that was developed for Man Bat was that his wife Francine, they stuck through things, even though she was a feral bat, and he was trying to save her, and then their kid was sick, and she used the serum to cure him. All of that, in that reboot, when they turned her basically into the Man-Thing Ted Salas story, like, I'm not, Francine's like, I don't really love you, I just want your serum. It's like, really?
Yeah.
You're gonna, I would like to think that DC and some of the stuff has done since then was kind of a quiet apology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that was just like, you took an essential part of a character. Granted, how many Man Bat super fans exist in the world?
I mean, enough that he keeps popping up in TV series.
Yeah.
He's part of Justice League Dark. Like, he's
agreed.
Yeah. So he's got a devout following.
Right. And that is the bookend of what I'm talking about, because the early one and then current Man Bat is kind of Dr. Langstrom coming home there a little bit. He's on the path of redemption. He's the mad scientist, and he's perfected the formula. And he shoots himself in the neck with the formula, and there he is. He's Man Bat, whose feralness is channeled for good. Yeah, and he doesn't want to eat everybody. And rampage.
Now it's funny you talk about Man Bat like that, and he really does have that devout following, whereas like some of my characters, like Red Tornado, like no one cares. He's there until he gets blown up.
Okay, yeah, and maybe I'm just don't have an objective view of Man Bat or whatever, because I was scarred as a child. I was there for the issue 1 of Man Bat, and then issue 2, and it was canceled.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just the era in which you were reading. So, I mean, the 90s were kind of the same way. Like they would have a really big push for issue 1, issue 2. Orders hadn't quite come in for issue 2, so issue 2 was just as big. Oh no, issue 2 didn't do so well. Issue 3 we're cutting. Like no one's going to get that. Issue 4. Does anyone even want this thing? So like if you were reading a thing and really wanted your fourth part to your miniseries, good luck.
Yeah.
So. I feel like the DC app has kind of changed that a little bit, especially with being able to watch some of the cartoons and, like I'm rewatching the Teen Titans.
Oh, the Young Justice.
Young Justice, sorry. The whole storyline with the Reds and everything, and it's so good,
Yeah, I mean, that was a really nice time with Red Tornado coming back to the forefront for Young Justice, because I mean, in the Young Justice comic, he was in charge of the kids.
Yeah.
Because he had his adopted daughter, and he was trying to figure out, man, how can I become normal? Can I
this whole like humanity thing?
And then as soon as that book ended, in Justice League, when Brad Meltzer took over, he had this whole thing with Red Tornado, how like Red Tornado was one of the most underutilized comic book characters in all of comics, and how him just using his tornado power was like you using your car as a flashlight. And I was like, wow, I can't wait to see what he has in store for this. Like, I was so excited. I was like, finally, one of my guys is getting his due. Oh man, let's read this. And he builds himself a human body, and the human body doesn't have the tornado powers. And then Solomon Grundy shows up and then does what Solomon Grundy does to robots, and he just destroys them. And then that was kind of the end of all the cool things he was going to do with Red Tornado. And then he didn't follow through with like just that one statement of Red Tornado is...
Yeah, you build up all your hope, and it's funny. I didn't think about what you said about Red Tornado. He's just there to get destroyed. And I remember, when's the first time I saw Red Tornadoes? Oh, it was an old Justice League or some sort of crisis thing where he winds up sacrificing himself. They had to build. I don't remember the story. I just remember seeing as a kid there was some giant hand or something trying to crush the planet or whatever, and all the heroes have to combine their powers into this one artifact, and I'll bring it. Says Superman.
Yeah.
Dr. Fate says, no, it's magic too, and it'll hurt you. And then while they're all arguing, Red Tornado takes it, delivers the weapon, and does the process.
And like he totally does that in the cartoon too.
Yeah,
okay,
all the time.
Like he constantly is giving up his body to save the kids.
It's and that I mean that's
like it's the perfect like realization of who he is as a character.
Yeah, it's this. He's this guy who just wants to fit in and be part of humanity, but he doesn't understand his humanity, so he just tries to get rid of whatever's there. This whole it's this really vicious cycle that's never really been explored. And he's alluded to having all these other abilities, and him. I mean, they've gone as far as saying that he is an Earth elemental.
I thought that.
Yeah,
he's inhabiting the android body. He isn't an android. It's just his vehicle.
Air elemental of the Earth. And that was cool. But apparently, like his body, every time that it gets rebuilt, whatever, is better and has all these vast abilities that just never get explored. All this other stuff, and no one ever does anything with it.
Are you listening, DC? It sounds like you have a ripe.
I'm just saying.
History here that you can just put together, pack it all into one thing, and don't shortchange him this time.
Yeah, hit me up. I'm ready. Throw me in, coach. I'll give you the world's greatest Red Tornado story.
Why not? Give him a chance.
Yeah, I'm just saying. It's weird. Like, for whatever reason, everyone tries to classify, like, are you a Marvel or a DC? Where it's I just love comics. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, I think Marvel has the better month-to-month, like, overall stories, whereas DC has, like, the better moments or single issues and overall kind of better characters, even though, like, like, man, nothing's ever going to touch my Fantastic Four. Like, I love them more than... But, like, when I'm asked, hey, who are my favorite characters, it's Zatanna, Metamorpho, Mr. Miracle, Orion, Batman. Like, it's they're all DC. Like, DC are my favorite characters. I'm like, damn, what do you do with that?
I don't know.
So looking at it, it's where are some of the most, like, heartfelt, touching stories, and you have the month-to-month moments, or month-to-month series, and then every now and then there's a space in an extra issue, or there's an annual, or there's need for a fill-in story here or there, where they have 8 pages to spare, and you get some of the most touching stories you'll ever come across through DC, just because they allow for that.
You just reminded me of one. I can't tell you where it was, but it had something to do with Mr. Terrific and Batman. I think Mr. Terrific was talking to Batman about, stuff and being alone or whatever. And Batman then says, so are you going to want to sit down and talk to me about this? Like he was going to, like he said, no, I want you to help me, kind of moment, like butchering it.
I feel like that was around Infinite Crisis.
That could have been.
Yeah.
It could have been.
Yeah, because that's when Mr. Terrific really kind of came to the forefront. And because you were told that he was one of the smartest brains on the planet, and then it's yeah, here's Batman admitting, yeah, hey man, I don't know everything, and I like your take on things. Let's hear it.
Yeah.
So
And those small stories too are sometimes those best moments, like you say. So many of the secret files, because I'll collect the secret files.
Yeah.
They have those little stories, and they're like, ironically, how many times have I told you that one of my favorite stories of all time has to do with a character that I really don't like?
Yeah.
And forgive me, New Gods people or whatever. I just find the entire cast of all the lackeys to Darkseid as just ridiculous.
because they are
Yeah.
in the best way.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Go with that this way. Yeah, that's what I mean. Please don't kill me. But that best story I'm thinking of is the origin of Granny Goodness. When she was low in the ranks, or at least up and coming in the ranks, and they were training all these like why does Darkseid need an army of nasty Dobermans and all that? And she's training them. And I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. Find the story, read it. It's awesome. Again,
You know what?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, because you're here to make your example.
Well, I think because she's Granny Goodness, and then named the dog Mercy. I think that's how it went. And so Goodness or Mercy, ha ha ha. And then at the end, just because she like all the other trainers, supposed to present their dogs to Darkseid to say, hey, we did a good job. This dog will tear apart anybody in your name. And so he orders the dog to attack Granny Goodness. It wasn't a Granny. He's young, and she has to kill him, of course. And the pun is, or that the serious pun is, that there's no mercy
on Apocalypse.
On Apocalypse.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, And I mean, I find Granny Goodness kind of silly, but also creepy at the same time, and
Yes.
normal incarnation. But it was like, that was an awesome story. That was an awesome story.
Yeah. Man, you saying that, like, that brings me to my favorite little short story that in Green Lantern Corps, I think 3.
You're going back to the best Green Lantern ever?
Oh my God, yeah. So for those that have watched every 52 episodes of this podcast, and pretty much any other podcast I've ever been on, I talk about whatever happened to Charlie Vickers. It's absolutely positively one of my favorite comic book stories in all of comics. So Charlie Vickers is there, reenacting Shakespeare for these aliens, and you're like, why is this human doing this for aliens? This is weird. And it starts telling the history of Charlie Vickers. So he was an actor on the Green Lantern TV show, who looked just like Hal Jordan when he had the mask on. When he had the mask off, he had freckles, and his eyes were a little different. But so these aliens came to trap Green Lantern, but they ended up on set and found a guy dressed like Green Lantern and captured him. So while Green Lantern was while Hal Jordan was in pursuit of these aliens, Charlie Vickers beat him up and won, and saved the day.
A little bit of Galaxy Quest, maybe.
Yeah. This predates Galaxy.
Oh, that's what I mean. It inspired Galaxy Quest. Yeah.
So at the time, Green Lantern could duplicate his ring. So it was like, hey, you seem worthy of being in the Green Lantern Corps. Here you go, kid. Go to Oa. They'll train you up. So he was like, all right, cool. And then we didn't see him for forever. And then, in the comics, you'd always kind of see him in the background and doing whatever. And, every now and then he'd be there in the big group shots, fighting the good fight, that kind of stuff. And then he got killed a lot because people forgot that he died, right? But there's one story kind of ignores some of that stuff and gives you the origin of him losing his Green Lantern abilities. So he gets trained and really wants to go be around intelligent alien worlds and people that look more humanoid. And he gets assigned to what he calls a just backwater planet full of ugly aliens and uglier aliens, and he doesn't like any of it. But he does the best he can, and decides, all right, well, this is what I'm dealt. Let's take care of it. And then a civil war breaks out on the planet. It's the uglier aliens versus the ugly aliens, whatever. and he decided it's time to stop that. So he's fighting the good fight, and then he gets recalled to Oa by the Guardians for the trial of Sinestro. And he's like, well, why do I need to be there for the trial? He's obviously a bad guy. Look at all the bad guy stuff he's been doing. Also, his name is Sinestro.
We know he's a jerk.
Yeah.
Done. Guilty.
And they're like, you need to be here. It's mandatory. He's like, Civil War, people are dying. You gave me the ring to save people. Let's do this. So the Guardians take his ring away and leave him there.
Oh.
And instead of like freaking out and trying to get home and whatever, he he joins the oppressed aliens that don't have the technology or whatever, and helps them win. But he gets stuck on their planet, not knowing their language or anything. He's just guy that helped win the war.
Oh, you got to remedy that in a superhero school.
Yes. Yeah, we did.
Which is good.
So yeah, man, now we're just talking back issues, which I do love.
Of course.
I don't know.
I gotta throw one more favorite moment in there, especially if you got to represent Marvel. It was since a big Marvel Monsters fan, it was Fin Fang 4 when they.
Oh man, yeah.
For the classic Marvel Monsters, there's a program for rehabilitation, so they willingly submit to being shrunk down.
Yes.
And they had their adventures and all that. It was a 4-issue miniseries, and then I think the last scene was Fin Fang Foom is still humans. I mean, he's taller than humans, but he's comparably
shrunk down
sized.
to
He's comparably sized, and he's playing chess with Reed Richards. And I think it was in Central Park. Must have been Central Park, and it ends with Fin Fang Foom going check. Putting Reed Richards in check, not checkmate, but check. It was like, okay, this establishes Fin Fang Foom. He isn't just the Dragon meets Godzilla analog.
Yeah.
And I was always upset that kind of got discarded over time, and then he was back to he's the most discontinuityed new verb or adjective, whatever. English people figure that out. You can help with that maybe. What part of speech should I just make up? It's like, come on, there's all this going on here. Then okay, now he's back. He's giant and angry, and purple pants are back on, and he doesn't make any sense. And then he's smart, and then he's not, and then he's whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to file a complaint with the Time Variance Authority that they keep just messing with continuity.
In the recent run of Iron Man, Dan Slott actually kind of plays with that. Because I think
did he disavow some of this stuff?
So first issue,
I remember Nerd Rage.
So first issue, he goes on this rampage, and Iron Man's like, "Well, better break out the Red Ronin." Armor,
that was,
right.
Yeah,
and we're like, "Oh, that's really cool." And Iron Man's like, "But I thought Fin Fang Foom was a good guy now." And then he finds one of the little controller discs from Controller.
Yeah.
And then Fin Fang Foom's like, "Oh, thanks. I hate it when I do that."
Okay. Yeah. That was a good moment. I think I was thinking of something prior to that.
Yeah, but I mean, prior to that, we had the Fin Fang 4 series where it kind of put all the toys back in their box, and it's they're over here for use of whenever we need to, and it's a perfect place to put them back into things as needed.
But then came the travesty known as Monsters Unleashed.
Oh my god! Which
prepare to bleep me out. Just maybe just a long boo, just for about 5 minutes, and that'll cover it. So.
Yeah, well, because we were told that this Monsters Unleashed thing was going to be everything that Marvel Monster fans would ever want to see or hear.
Nope.
Oh no! We saw the signs though coming up. Okay, Uncontrollable Rage is coming.
It was them essentially maintaining, proving that they could maintain copyright on all their Marvel monsters, because they were like, "Hey, fans, write in and make sure that we know all the Marvel monsters that you could ever remember or think. All of them are going to be here, and all of them are going to have a part. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
It's going to be great." And then it ended up being some stupid kid that could draw a monster into existence.
Right now, but you're forgetting the tell that was coming. There, we did have a warning sign in one of those specials and we invented 5 new monsters for the whoa, and that was just nope. They're just not going with what the richness of the history and just embrace it and run with it. No, we're gonna do it our way, and you're gonna love it. And yeah. The only thing good that came out of Monsters Unleashed were the custom boxes, the Gugam Doctor Strange story.
Yes,
that was good. And there may have been one other, but they were. It was mostly. I do not store them in the Monsters Unleashed box. I just store all the other monster comics in the Monsters Unleashed box.
No, it's one of those where the series could have easily been, hey, Mole Man is in charge of Monster Island in the Marvel Universe, right? Okay, so what if Mole Man wants, I don't know, anything? He wants a Snickers. He's hungry, wants a Snickers. No one has a Snickers. Hey, monsters, go get him a Snickers. There are 2 issues already.
And that's
like, how hard is that? As opposed to, let's create more monsters because everyone knows monsters so well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's hey, there's murky water. Let's make it murky.
Well, and it became almost like they halfway stole something from where the wild things are or whatever, in the sense that all the monsters live in some off universe. Oh, we'll be back and you'll rule the day, or what? Some trivial thing like that.
It's a perfect thing. No, that Marvel has Monster Island, which is it's a really big island with really big caverns underneath.
Not far from Japan. It's got the trope. The trope that actually is a staple. Really, you could say that we all accept. The Monster Island, whether it's Godzilla or Kong Island or whatever, or what from Edgar Rice Burroughs, any of that stuff exists in a sci-fi kind of archetype or whatever. There you go.
Yeah,
they break out when you need them, and then you let them go back and hang out.
Yeah, they're living peacefully on this island. Don't worry about it. It's
don't drop nukes on it.
Yeah,
bad idea. Some will live.
Some will get bigger.
Yeah. There you go. So. Okay.
Oh man,
I expected to rage more on that, but thank you. Maybe if I rage occasionally on that, it won't build up or whatever. So thank you for that.
No, it's it's one of those where Monsters Unleashed really should have been this really great, rich event that could have been, hey, did you read that? Oh man, it was really pretty good. As opposed to this, that's dollar box fodder. Like it's
not even. It's the second time they ruined one of their great titles because or I don't know which one. Which was when they redid everything and Where Monsters Dwell was one of the titles.
Oh, that was Secret Wars.
Yeah, but now where did that? I forget in time. Where did that go with Monsters Unleashed? Was that
prior? That was.
That was prior.
I think Monsters Unleashed, I think, was before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Monsters Unleashed, great sounding title, hails back to the 70s of the big magazines. And, oh yeah, look at those covers, that great art and everything. And then Where Monsters Dwell, that was the biggest one of their titles, or the reprints of all the stuff.
Yeah.
And then so they took 2 of their greatest sounding titles and absolutely ruined them, because Where Monsters Dwell, more rage. It had dinosaurs, not monsters. Yes, I know they cross over, and the main characters were all jerks. I mean, just really despicable people that you were hoping turn the page, monster eats them, and then I'll take some blank pages after that rather than what they dish up. It was like
you're like, I'll just write my own story after this.
I'll make my own story with blackjack and
Yes.
Yeah. So but yeah, little Futurama there for you. Yeah. So I share the rage with the Monsters Unleashed business, and they keep talking about trying to do another thing with it, and it's quit kicking them while they're down.
Well, it's what aside from Monsters Unleashed, which they really tried to they didn't. I can't imagine it sold well, and they just kept going with it for a while. I kept seeing issue after issue.
It did well enough, and I mean it should have been a really fun hey look, we get to see the Avengers fight a big giant monster. Cool. Hey look, it's the Champions, which. Avengers, it should have been a 3-page, hey, look, we took out the big giant monster because that's what we do. Whereas, the Champions, it would have been oh, man, what am I doing? Oh, God, what are we doing? I think I just kicked him in the ankle. Oh, I didn't like that. Yeah. Yeah. How hard is that? And then it became this whole, oh, wait, no, Nova's having trouble with the thing. But no, he's one of the strongest. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But prior to that, though, it was every several years they would kind of revive the monsters, or maybe longer.
Yeah.
And sometimes, comics, of course, artwork. Good story can defeat not so awesome art, or whatever. But there's something about some of the art that's employed where it's enough. It's had this enough of a surreal element where, at least I don't know what other people experience, but when I see artwork that is a little bit too surreal, it makes it easy to say this isn't part of continuity, and it's really not part of what's going on. We're buying into shared universes. That's part of the fun of Marvel and DC and other companies, but Marvel and DC, hey, there's a monster in there, and maybe someday he can meet Spider-Man, whatever, that potential. That's a little bit of what's going on there. But when they use these artists that are not quite there in terms of the serious, it's almost like we know this isn't serious or fully serious. Again, with apologies to anybody who's worked on that.
Well,
it's got its place, but why always with the monsters?
So sometimes they'll use books like that as tryout books. Hey, you are you serious about trying to make comic books? If so, draw these things that you're unfamiliar with. If you can do these, get them done in a timely fashion. Don't complain about it. Get this done, and you'll get other work. That's kind of how some of that stuff goes. And for a book like that where it's not terribly high stakes because they don't really believe in the thing already because it's a copyright saver.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the artists get tryouts.
Yeah, I get that, and it's still hard not to just, because it's always, try out some other books.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially where some of these characters have only had 2 or 3 other appearances.
Yeah.
So if they're drawn wrong, then do you really count that as an appearance, or is someone just tracing someone else's work just to? Not that I'm accusing anyone of trading, but it has to be such a specific. Yes, that's them. There they are.
Yeah.
That any other artistic license doesn't really quite fit in.
Right. No, that's true, and so these things are just kind of these odd items anyway. So they just cease to be who they are.
Yeah.
Goom and Googam, you've got to distinguish between the dad and the son.
Right.
It's just how it is.
Or there's the Fin Fang Foom, and then the Asgardian serpent. This
okay. Boy, we're getting.
Oh my God!
That was a purposeful rage button.
Yes, it was.
Yes, the false appearances of Fin Fang Foom. That's another problem. The false. Oh, it's not him. It's the Midgard serpent, or it's whatever. Or there was another one where it was fake. There was at least a second story.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I started Stop Falling for It. Wait, no, I stopped starting to fall. Whatever it is, Falling for It was off the agenda. I fail a lot, and especially at English, sometimes when the rage, I think, is kind of disrupted.
Here comes Swahili, I swear.
Here it comes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, no, just not gonna go there.
So, every now and then I'll look into is there anything Fin Fang Foom I don't have or don't know about? One of his powers listed. Anytime you're like, oh, well, what are some of his powers and abilities? Because it varies from appearance to appearance. Sometimes he breathes fire, and sometimes he does not.
Right. Sometimes he's immune to the comics code and doesn't wear pants. Sometimes,
yeah. So one of his powers is that he can fly his alien spaceship because he's an alien.
And the pilot of the ship they got here isn't just that.
And he can't get back to where he's from. Because it's so far. Yeah. It's this stupidest.
Well, of course. If you're going to, again, let's pretend we're going to have a consistent continuity. All right. Instead of shrinking him down, how about, just say, you know what? In exchange for not bothering you, the next ship that you take from the Skrulls after beating them up, if you could pre-program it to here, put me on it, and I'll leave you alone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird that you have all these monsters at disposal and at various points. Like S.H.I.E.L.D. has tried to do here's the Howling Commandos with its monsters, which has
that's the first Howling Commandos. Yeah. That's your.
I hate that. Yeah. But so they've tried to take care of the smaller monsters, but don't really worry about the big giant monsters. Whereas in Secret Invasion, man, if they could have really coordinated imagine when the Skrulls came in, oh, okay, so I see that you're impersonating them. Can you impersonate them?
Yeah.
Check out, be Fin Fang Foom.
Yeah.
Be Googam.
Why not?
Yeah. good luck. So
we're trying to make sense of a comic book universe. I don't.
We're
We're supposed to do that, right?
Look at us complaining about make-believe.
Yeah. Get your make-believe straight, people.
Which I guess at the end of the day, that's what it's really about. Is that these are entertainment that is so compelling that we've honestly built an entire culture around it.
Well, and as silly as that is, there is a serious point beneath it to storytellers, and that is, if you're going to have a fictional universe, there has to be a certain amount of consistency that makes sense to it.
Right.
I mean, just because we are talking about universes which allow for mass changes of things and warp drive and vampires coexisting with Superman, etc.,
or just simply surviving radiation poisoning.
Right. Yeah. Is he strong? Listen, blood.
Yeah.
He's got radioactive blood. Well, that usually doesn't end well.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna have these weird forms of science in there, they have to behave consistently.
Right.
Or even more to the point, characters should behave consistently.
Which you're getting a little bit more of now. Like the editors are kind of reining everything back in, and you're getting this is how this character does, because go back to the Silver Age. Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Flash, they're all pretty much the same person, just with a different costume and superpowers.
Yeah, and but again, that was also the fallout from all the Comics Code stuff and everything.
Yeah, but it's weird to say that right now what we're living in is better now than what it's been. So not everyone would agree with that, but overall. This is some of the best stuff that we've ever had come out, and unfortunately for some of these characters, it's probably going to be 20, 30 years before we see anything better than that. So,
no, true.
Oh man, well, George, I think we've just about hit time. So
wow, I think I've just raged out.
I know, right?
Yeah,
I can return to a normal functioning person. So
if you want to, tell you what, if you want to rage out on one more thing.
That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
I hate pressure. Pressure's my enemy.
Yeah.
I don't do well with pressure. Oh my God, no.
No, it's No, that's fine. I think that's probably enough.
Fair enough.
Yeah, if I burn out those circuits, I may you may not be able to have me back to have an occasional rage out.
Yeah. Well, there's so much that I didn't get to that I wanted to, but we'll have to save that for future episodes in the next 52 episodes that we'll be doing.
It may even be in episode 53.
Yeah.
What you had to say.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
We will see.
Yeah. So, George, we'll definitely talk to you next time, whenever this next time ends up being.
Okay.
Stephanie, thanks for being here with
Thank
this
you.
wild ride of everything.
All kinds of stuff.
Oh my gosh, we covered so much ground, and it
was a roller coaster of emotions.
It might be a small circle of ground, but we covered all of it.
That's right.
Yes.
With lots of
or at least lots of parts of it.
And we kicked up a lot of dirt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Muddled waters, some might even say. Anyway, Drew, thanks for putting this whole shindig on. I've been Buck Verlin here at New World Comics for the New World Comics podcast. Find us on Spreaker, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Smoke Clouds, I don't know, sides of buses, YouTube. I know that's one of them.
Or you can just come to the shop.
Come to the shop. Facebook. We're all over 30, so Facebook. Yeah. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you all here next week.
See ya.
Bye.